Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Project Flux, the Spotlight series where we delve into the role of AI in project delivery. Today we are really lucky to have Allister Lewis, the founder of AD, which stands for Automated Data-Driven Design. He's got a background as an architect and a BIM manager and has now developed this new platform that he's going to talk about. So we're going to explore his journey, the inspiration behind AD, and how AI is transforming the way that projects are delivered and executed. So get ready for an insightful discussion on the future of AI in project delivery. And don't forget to subscribe to both the newsletter and the podcast. And on that note, let's dive into the conversation with Allister Lewis, the founder of AD. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Project Flux. This is the Spotlight series where we get to interview all kinds of influential people in the world of construction tech and AI in the project and productivity world. Today we have the pleasure of Alistair Lewis from ADDD, who I was lucky enough to meet at the latest Digital Construction Week a few months ago, and I thought it would be wonderful to bring him on to the podcast so that everyone can find out about the innovative marketplace that he is bringing to the world of construction technology. So, Alistair, welcome to the Project Flux podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you on.
Thanks very much. Yeah, appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So, if we could start by just sharing your journey from being a BIM manager and then an architect to founding the ADDD, and if you could also let us know what ADDD stands for, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
If we start with that, and then I'll move on to a follow-on question.
Okay. So AD, I say AD. It's automated data-driven design, and I will come on to where that came from eventually. But it's what I kind of stuck with. But so in terms of my journey, so I'm an architect by background, and I was what I call a normal architect for a number of years. And I really love being an architect, doing community centres and schools, primary schools, lots of different public sector buildings, working in local authority, but also in the private sector as well. And that was a really great role. And over that period of time, I got much more engaged with the sort of technology side of things. So in 2008, I think it was, I started using Revit, and then I moved to Hampshire County Council, and they said, we want you to run a BIM project. So I said, great, I'll do it in Revit. It's a Revit project. They said, no, it's a BIM project, which meant I had to go away and find out, exactly what BIM was, what it looked like, why it was such a big thing at that time, all about the BIM levels and things like that. And again, it's a really fascinating role. Trying to be an architect and a BIM manager at the same time, which is quite hard to do them both well. So at a certain point, I transitioned into full-time BIM and left the architecture work behind, and worked for a number of different practices in that role. One of them was as a head of technology, which is a kind of made-up title, but essentially was kind of encompassing a lot more than just BIM. It was tech. Processes, software, hardware, innovation, all those different things. And what I did was I enrolled on a BIM Masters and decided I was going to go all in on this. And that BIM Masters essentially required a thesis, and I did a thesis on data-driven design. And the idea behind that was I could see smaller, quite niche consultancies or practices doing some really interesting work with computational design and using data and pushing what was BIM to that next level. And I spoke to an architect recently, he said beyond BIM, which I think was quite a nice term for it, because BIM has been around for quite a period of time now. We kind of
it's about 10 years, isn't it?
Not far off. And I think most people know what it is and we can put it into place, but then there is the next level, which is data-driven design or computational design, or getting hold of really new solutions. And since I did that master's, I had been collecting a database of construction technology software, and every time I saw a new one on LinkedIn or someone had shared it, I put it into this database, and that grew and grew quite quickly. And that was essentially the kind of the inspiration for developing the marketplace. And in addition to that, about 2 years ago, I did some coaching. So I'm in my 40s now, and
Join the club.
yeah. So
I like
someone,
Yoshi.
yeah, someone just said on LinkedIn, a friend of mine's looking for some people to coach. Let me know if you're interested. And I did it, and the lady who ran it was amazing. And we focused in on where I was and what I wanted to try and do, I suppose, and what that looked like. And going back to that research I'd done, the database I had, and this interest, I kind of thought there might be something here I want to develop. And when you read about startups, they do say, what you want to do is find a hobby you can turn into a business. So I've kind of done that in a way. And that was the inspiration for the marketplace, was to say, take all that software, but make it accessible on a platform which is different from a list or web directory or a private database or whatever. So there's a book called Platform Revolution, which I also read, which is instrumental in kind of guiding my thinking on that as well.
Yeah, I've read that. I read that book.
Yeah, I
it's
think
amazing.
A few of
It's
us
absolutely
have heard
amazing.
of them.
And you read that book and you go, why doesn't the construction industry have this? We didn't have
Yeah.
it. And so that was like, well, I just read through it and I was like, we could do this for construction tech. So that's why I created the marketplace. It's a platform, and it's an e-commerce marketplace that allows people to put their products in terms of software, their services in terms of consultancy, and we also have a job section for construction technology companies who are looking for those really niche people who know a lot about construction but also know how to code. And
we call them the translators, Alistair, the translator role.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last practice company I worked for was a company called Cope. They've transitioned into being a offsite construction software or content company, and the people who are in there are absolutely amazing. They've got amazing construction and industry knowledge, as well as amazing coding and development knowledge. And that's where I find it really, really fascinating that a lot of companies are in that sphere now.
That's the beyond BIM, isn't it, that you're talking about? There's sort of combining data science, artificial intelligence, and BIM. And I think it's fair to say that having a look around AD or ADDD, it strikes me as basically the best way to describe it is like the Apple App Store for construction software. There's a very simplified way. So we'll put the link onto the show notes so everyone can have a look and use it as they see fit. It's been really useful for me, just having a look around some of the construction software that we're looking to utilise. But I was really struck with something you just said, Alistair, around your role as a BIM manager and this beyond BIM, because I've always thought to myself that BIM was kind of not the complete picture. And do you feel that artificial intelligence and the way we're going with generative design could be the missing link, if you like, between the real kind of aspirations from BIM at the beginning we weren't able to get to because simply we couldn't always fill in the blank spaces? Do you think that that's going to really move on to this beyond BIM paradigm that you were talking about?
I think there is a potential for that, and I was in a workshop on Friday which I was leading, and we were talking about AI in real estate specifically, and we were talking about what that impact looks like, the data that's required, and the thing about AI is it will take huge amounts of data and allows you to interrogate that really quickly and easily. It will open up a lot of doors, and you can see on LinkedIn, with my feeds, you see people exploring that and saying, well, I've got all this BIM data, whatever that might be. Can I use AI to help interrogate that? Can I use it to create drawings or to create information for me? How can I automate the mundane, which I talk to a lot of practice about? It's actually AI is amazing, and you can do some amazing imagery and development of graphics and stuff like that. But actually what it really allows for is automating those mundane tasks, which we all do day after day, over and over again. And actually we don't necessarily need to. And, if you've got the resources, you can obviously develop your own large language models and develop an AI tool. And we're working with a few architects on things like that, which are bespoke. But equally, you can see more proprietary tools coming out, which are saying, we can build something for you, which is fairly standardized. Take your data set and use that. So an example of that is Howie. It's howie.systems if you look online, or it's on the marketplace. And
Nice
what they're
plug.
doing is saying, for architects, you've got all this drawn data that you've collected over 20, 30 years, all in PDFs. We can turn that into a large language model. So when you're looking for a typical detail or the best type of detail or a fire stopping detail, rather than having to research it and redraw it and recreate it from scratch, you can use that data set and go, oh, okay, here's 4 examples from the last 4 projects in a residential building. This one looks about right. We can tweak that and move forward quicker. And I think that's what you're starting to suggest is we can do things a bit faster than we are now. Those tools could potentially help.
And for things like the education space that you've come from, and I was involved in the education space for a long time, there are a lot of kind of codes and standards that you have to abide by.
Yeah.
So there's certain grunt work, I would call it, that you have to go through.
Yeah.
But just a quick question for you before I move on to another topic, is because we've had various creative people on the show, and we had a graphic designer on recently who was saying effectively that graphic designers hate AI because they see it as something that's going to inhibit their creativity. What's the general feeling in the architecture world? Is it the same sort of fear, or are there people embracing it a bit more?
I think you're getting a very widespread across the industry, as always. There's a quote, the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed, and that's where we are with software, or with the way that we work, or with AI. Some people have taken hold of it and are doing incredible things, and then some people are like, no, we don't want to do this at all. And there's a lot of stuff in the middle. The recent RIBA report on AI made it seem like, I think it said something like 40% of architects are using AI. But if you look at their sample data, the number of people that responded to that survey were, in the hundreds, maybe even less. And, when you say we're doing a survey on AI, the people who are using AI tend to fill in that survey. It happened with BIM, the MBS BIM survey. I completed it as a BIM person. I was like, oh, there's a BIM survey, I'll complete that. So you do get a slight skew in the industry because, if only people using AI fill in those surveys, then unfortunately it kind of suggests a slightly different picture. But
it's that bias that, with anything, and including AI, you get this kind of unintentional bias because of things like that. Moving on then, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the marketplace and more around the reason for people seeing this as something that can help them. So what are some of the biggest challenges that professionals face when it comes to selecting the right software, and why do you think AD addresses these issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do a lot of work with architects, kind of through consultancy work, and it's been fascinating over the last 6 months going into places and talking to them about their challenges. And one of the big challenges they have, and I don't think this is specific to architects, but engineers and construction professionals generally, is when people want to try a new piece of software, they have to go through IT barriers to get it installed, which means it takes a really long time to test any software. And in addition to that, they're doing their day job, which is complex, time-consuming, and it is stressful. We know project delivery can be stressful. So, in order to help with that process, what I'm doing with the marketplace is that we have a location where you can search for solutions quickly and easily. We've got 50 categories at least now in there, and around 100 different products on that at the moment, and that will build based around our database, which has got 850. That will go into the marketplace over the next few months, so that it will be pretty comprehensive. And then what we've built within there as well is actually say, look, you can search, great, but also if you want to test software, we'll give you a virtual desktop, or VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure, to test that software in a safe environment. You don't need to build that. You don't need to do it. You can just literally launch it if you from the website. And then we've built an assessment criteria as well, so people can test the software, assess the software with a standardized spreadsheet, which is based around the future AEC software specification, which came out last year. and I can send you a link to that if you want to see it.
That'd be great. Yeah, we'll put as many resources as possible so we can share it.
So then you've got that assessment criteria, and then I've built just a really simple templated report structure so that when someone's done a review, it brings in that review criteria. That's qualitative data as well as quantitative data that can go into it. So you have 5 out of 10 for this, whatever. And then I found the software to work like this. This was useful. This was less useful. You can build that into a report and get that in front of a decision maker much, much faster than we do at the moment, because we're all trying to do things in a bespoke manner. And that's trying to compress the challenge identification to implementation timescale down. So that's the long-term aim for this. And then the next step on from that, what I'd really love to do is to create certified tech stacks. So if you're a small architect, here's 5 tools. They all work together seamlessly. We know they do. Purchase that, and you've got get that at a discount. Let's say
that's a really interesting idea, because I think that's where people really struggle. They know this is out there, but where do I start? How do I put it all together?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah. So again, if you're a medium-sized firm, you're going to have 10 solutions potentially, and if you're a really big firm, you might have 20. And part of that's trying to say, look, we know that software as a service is the way that we pay for software typically, but it's unsustainable at scale. If you've got 20 pieces of software, each user is paying £50 per user per month across an organization, it gets very, very expensive quite quickly. So if we could offer a way of reducing that cost by bundling them together and give them confidence that they will work together, then I think that would be quite fun. We're developing that at the moment.
Well, it takes that decision maker, because there is we'll come to it later, but there are so many startups and providers now. Just looking around Digital Construction Week when we were there, the number of stalls, anything that takes away that kind of inability for someone to make a decision, I think is only a good thing. But one more question before I hand over to Yoshi, who's got a slightly different topic. Do you vet the software that goes onto the platform? Is there a way of sort of quality controlling what goes onto the platform?
Yeah, so typically the process works is that we have a meeting face-to-face online and talk through the software, look at what it is, how it works, and just some of the detail how it works. I'm genuinely really interested from one point, and then from the other point, it's just to check what it looks like, how it works. Does it apply? Is it sensible and applicable to that particular marketplace? And then what you can do then is, once it's on there, users can leave a review, so they can review the actual store or the company itself, or they can review the product that they bought. So there's an ability to actually give that feedback for other users. And as I say, if we've got this assessment criteria as well, we can start to use that to inform other users of kind of maybe like a typical score that software is receiving. But also it helps to inform the software company to say, look, this is how users are finding your software. You may want to look at this area because they're struggling with interoperability, or the fact that it doesn't.
Well, it provides that feedback loop, doesn't it? That all developers need. No, that's really interesting. Yoshi, I think you were going to ask the next one.
Yeah, just one question that I've got. Got a couple of questions here, Alistair. So when I read the platform revolution, it mentions effective curation. And a lot of the things that you've mentioned is talking about effective curation. And they also talk about flywheels. Do you have a specific flywheel that you've kind of developed to kind of grow the marketplace?
So that's developing a network effect, basically.
Yeah, network effect.
Yeah, so it's the chicken and egg problem, and you're right to highlight it. So the idea behind that is, if you have software but no users, software companies won't be on there. But if you have no users, then software companies won't be on there. So what I'm doing is saying, look, get lots of software companies on there to start with, build up a database that people can go and have a look at. And as I say, we're coming up to 100 products now. And that was my aim for this year, was to have 100 on there. And I think we probably hit 100 today, actually, because put some more stuff on there.
Big milestone. Well done.
You heard it here first. So that's great. And then obviously the next step is to do a lot more outreach to say to potential users, when you're looking for software, come here. This is the central location for it. And one of the big things about this is why we didn't do it as a web directory, is that there's no barrier for entry in terms of software companies. It's free to create a store, free to put their products on there. they can link back in loads of different ways. So if they want to do a link to their website, they can do that. So you just find the product, go to the website. They can do affiliate links as well. So that works from the point of view that we can sign an agreement, and if I get referral to their website, then I can obviously get some payment, which is great because it obviously sustains the marketplace more. Or they can sell through the marketplace itself, either as a one-off fee for like a yearly subscription, or software as a service on a monthly basis. And what that means is, particularly for smaller up-and-coming companies that don't have payment systems inbuilt, is that they don't need to do that. They can just use the platform straight away and start selling software. And I've got a couple of companies like BIM Audit and Struck who have said, that's great, we'll get that on there, start using it really quickly and easily. And, we've got all of those different ways for companies to be found and referred back to different places. We've got all of that at the moment because we're super, super flexible, because at the moment it's about getting as many products on there. And the database will form the basis for the next 6 months is to outreach to all of those companies and say, look, we've got this environment, come and join us, be part of this, and allow people to find you a lot simpler and easier.
Cool. I've just got another question, Alistair. So you've been involved in implementing BIM and other technological innovations across different projects. How do you see emerging technologies like AI and generative design tools reshaping the future of the construction industry?
So AI is going to have a huge impact. I think we're doing a lot of testing and kind of exploration at the moment. I think lots of construction technology companies are creating AI co-pilots to their software or smallest kind of integrations into it, and that will grow and develop. And like I said, I kind of see it in two sides. It's not quite right, but you've got the AI for generating amazing imagery and design type information, and then you have AI which is going to help with automating mundane and standardized tasks. And that's my split at the moment. It's not, obviously not limited to that, but for example, we've got software like Swap and Schema who are talking very much about using AI to generate plans and drawings from a model, instantaneously or in a very short period of time, which when you think about what architects do all the time is we spend a lot of time drawing and creating information. And if AI can automate that, what does it mean for designers? Does it mean we get more time to design? Does it mean we can create more? Are we more productive? Does that help with sustainability targets and urban development and housing targets that we need to hit in the UK? And then in terms of generative design, it's a kind of a funny one. I was thinking about this when you obviously prompted me earlier about it. I've got a lot of generative design solutions on the marketplace, and I've tested quite a lot of those actually through my.
What are they like?
Well, they're all different. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're all trying to solve the same problem in that they want to help developers, architects, people who have parcels of land to quickly understand how they can put a development on there, whether it's residential, splitting it down into units, unit types, flat types, things like that. They're all focused on residential because it's the biggest market, which makes sense to me. But they all do things slightly differently. So, for example, Spatio is just a really beautiful interface generative design tool, which is being designed by architects, and it works really well for architects, I think, because of the interface.
What was that one called again? Just so we can.
It's called Spatio, Spacio. Okay. Again, look at the marketplace; it's there.
Yeah, there you go. 2 plugs. Well done.
So you've got Spatio. Then there's another one called Generate, which is a kind of American and Korean, South Korean product, and they are looking particularly at modular. So they want to say, you want to do modular construction, here's a modular generative design tool. So they're developing that. So that's 2 examples. And then there's loads of others in between. I think it's a little crowded, if I'm honest. I'm a bit worried that we've got a lot of generative design tools and maybe not enough uptake on those. But obviously people have decided that's the area to attack first. What I would say to counter that is that I think in terms of my experience at stage 4, when we're doing technical design or production information, that's the stage that takes, as architects, us the longest and also costs us the most and has the most risk associated of going over fee. So, tools like Swap and Schema and other tools which are looking to automate drawing production or finding, having drawing libraries of information, are going to really help in that sense to make us more effective and quicker and faster, because we know about productivity in the industry is historically very low, and we need to increase that. We know we've got huge challenges in terms of climate change, development, population growth, and we're not going to meet those with our existing tools. It just isn't going to happen.
No.
So
and I don't think it's unusual, when a new technology like this comes out, there's a scrambling and it gets quite inflated. I assume that, a market leader will emerge and then probably bought out by one of the big boys.
Also because of you've got the feedback mechanisms as well.
Yeah. So that happened 2 years ago, where we had a Spacemaker, which was a Nordic generative design tool, which was really nice, really good, and I tested it in its original phase. And then Autodesk bought that, I think, for around $250 million, around that area. And that's now called Autodesk Forma, and it's been folded into their offering of all their different tools. And you're right, the market leaders or the threats to those big companies will be bought out. Some of them will go on and be integrated in, and some of them, unfortunately, may be mothballed, because that's what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, you either buy a company to build on it or to stop it being a competition, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it can happen. So what will be fascinating over the next few years is to see how those big players like Nemetschek, Hexagon, Trimble, Autodesk evaluate those market solutions and say, where do we want to step into here and purchase? Where do we want to leave them to develop? Where do we see a threat? But the reality is there's so many tools coming out, they can't buy all of them. So there will always be a kind of what I'm going to call an ecosystem of different tools which will work together.
Do you, putting your architect hat on, do you worry about the likes of Autodesk, because they are so big that eventually they could just sort of corner the market and automate a lot of the architect's role?
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, the reality is that Autodesk kind of already have, with their use of Revit, definitely in the US, in the UK, for larger practices and medium-sized practices, they have to choose between Revit or ArchiCAD. And there have been examples of people who've gone to ArchiCAD who have then moved to Revit, because contractors ask for Revit, and contractors have Autodesk products, and they want to see it in the same ecosystem. And part of the work we talked about earlier was about actually how do you be interoperable between the different solutions, and that's where we want to see more open source software that allows that, so that you aren't reliant on one system, because the future AEC software specification came out because of the letter to Autodesk, which was released a few years ago, which basically said, Autodesk, you're not updating your products, you're not giving us what we need, and you're charging us a huge amount of money. Please do something to help us. And there were some noises from Autodesk, which was great, but then nothing really happened. So this specification is a sort of rallying cry from a lot of the top UK practices to say, look, we need better solutions. Software industry as a whole, this is what we want, and that criteria has 10 points. And I would point you in the direction of Aaron Perry from AHMM and Andy Watts as well, who led that, and also so Andy Watts works for Grimshaw, and Ian Godwin as well from Godwin Associates, led a lot of that work. And yeah, I've plugged into it basically, but they've done all of the kind of hard work to progress that.
Well, it's really interesting because it goes to show what can happen when an industry comes together, which is part of what we do with the Project Data Analytics Task Force. So I think we've got one more question from Yoshi.
Yeah, just so, Alistair, the procurement of technologies is also a very key part of any construction project or projects as a whole. Have you yourself considered using AI within ADD Marketplace to make it more personalized in terms of the information you're giving to your users?
Yeah, so I did set up a chatbot actually, which queried against the database very early on, and then would give you solutions based around that. But I couldn't, with my limited skills, get that to perform as well as I wanted to. But it will be definitely something. At the moment, I've got what we call a manual minimum viable product with the test, assessment, and report process. But you could create very quickly an AI report builder. You go, I've done this, integrate this report. This is my findings, put this into the structure, things like that. So that will become part of it, I think. And there's I'm working with an AI company at the moment, as I say, with some other companies, but I'd really like to work with them on this as well. But that is sort of like on the roadmap, and short term it's about get as many products and companies on there, get people searching and using it, and then build up from there as well.
So one more question from me, a bit of a devil's advocate question. So there's a lot of software available, as we saw when we were at Digital Construction Week, with just the amount of stalls there and the sheer volume of choice, I guess, can become overwhelming, and that can sometimes lead to decision fatigue. So how do you respond to concerns that the ad marketplace might inadvertently just contribute to this problem by offering just too many options?
Yeah, I mean, that is a fair point. But I think, the main point here, I think, is about we can't carry on working the way that we do now because we aren't productive enough. So we need newer, better tools, and the industry is creating those for us, which is great. And I'm saying us as in AEC and operations as well. So that we can perform better, faster, more sustainable, more profitable, more productive. That would be my first point, that these tools are there to help us do that. Yeah. And then, as I say, I've broken it down into 50 different categories. So we've got a number of different categories. So, if you're QS, for example, you can look at cost estimating, you can look at quantification, whatever it might be in that area. And then the idea then is that you can filter and sort through those and find them quickly and easily. The reality at the moment is if someone said to a normal professional, go and find me, 5 cost estimating software, they'd do a search on Google and they'd get the 5 top answers will be, Costex and, the big players in the market, because they've bought up all of those web search terms on there. So what you can do on the marketplace is we haven't done that. We've just said, look, we've got all these tools. You're able to search for them and find them essentially without any favorability, any sort of bias in there at all, so that you can go, okay, I found 5, I found 10 solutions. I can see some of the big players, great, but I can also see some of the smaller, more niche ones which are coming through, which actually help me because they're the right price. They do the right job. It's I'm a niche professional that does school developments, for example, and I have a certain way of working. I don't want to necessarily disrupt that too much, and I'm looking for a certain type of tool. And that's what helps. Whereas, like I say, if you try and search on Google, you'd be lost for days potentially trying to find all the solutions. And
that's a very good point.
Yeah, that's where I want to be. Is actually you say I'm looking for a solution. I'll go to the ad marketplace and I can find that quickly and easily.
Yeah, because it can get quite frustrating on Google. You're faced with whoever's spent the most amount of money on the Google AdWords, and it's becoming quite bloated.
I'd imagine, James, as well, though, because you raised a good point. I mean, when you go to the App Store within Apple, I know things like Product Hunt and AppSumo, you can buy software and they're relatively cheaper. So you can take a risk with one solution and then maybe try out another if you don't like it. Now, I'm not too savvy with this, but I'd imagine with construction software, it might be a lot more expensive. So that decision-making process might have to be a lot more comprehensive, which might exacerbate the issue, of saying, okay, I have to get the right product. How do you kind of navigate that? Do you provide a service to showcase people, okay, this solution might be good and this one might not? Do you provide more information into them?
Yeah, in my day-to-day work, we're bootstrapping this operation with consultancy work. So we do workshops with different professionals, so architects and engineers primarily, because that's my sort of area of expertise. But that doesn't limit it to other companies as well, because the marketplace has loads of different solutions on there. But I think what we'll be doing over the next 3 to 4 months is doing a lot of outreach work to kind of go, look, here's 10 solutions in this area. This is what's really good about them. This is where they could be improved. We'd like to compare different software as well and say, look, you've got these solutions. How do you compare them? What does that look like? Try and give people some of the resources to help do that themselves. So rather than, like I say, with my database, it's great, but only I have it. What I want to do is democratize access to that database, to reviewing software, to finding it quickly and easily, to testing it quickly and easily, so that we don't have, if you're a practice and you've got loads of different professionals in there, like IT managers and BIM managers, and you've got the resources in house pretty much to do that sort of work. But if you're a medium size, small size, or just a normal size practice, essentially, you probably don't have that expertise in house. So this marketplace is starting to say, look, we can provide that for you via that marketplace, or we can find the people that will help you. So with the services on there, people can look for specific services to help them with their Revit training or consultancy about workshops in construction. And that's where I really want to be, I suppose, is actually helping the industry to be better and faster and more effective.
Well, I love that because that really speaks to our mission about, and I love what you said about democratizing this technology. So it's not just the big players who can benefit from it, because the reality is there's all different sizes of projects in the world, from your extensions all the way through to your massive highways and motorways, and there's a place for all these technologies. So I think what you're doing, Alistair, is absolutely brilliant. I think it's a really attractive looking marketplace. I would encourage everyone who listens to go and check it out. We'll provide the link in the show notes. And you've got all that is left for us is to say thank you very much, Alistair, for coming on the show. It'll be really great if you could come back on maybe in a year or so to let us know how AD is moving forward.
Yeah.
But until then, I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed. It's been a really great conversation.
No, and congrats on the 100
Thanks very much.
software
and
applications as well.
Delighted to come back next year. That'd be great.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bye, everyone.